welcome to our next segment in the Women in Publishing Summit. I'm Alexa Bigworth, your host of the summit and founder of Write, Publish, Sell, a company that is designed to help authors basically hold your hand as you go through the publishing and marketing process and writing if you need that help. So today we are going to go into the area of children's books. I'm really happy to bring you Lindsay Ford, who I work with regularly in my children's book publishing imprint, Purple Butterfly Press. So Lindsay Ford is the author and illustrator behind the brand Bread and Clutter Books, which is a revolutionary children's book series changing the way that we think of the world and the people in it. Her first book, I'm sure of many to come, Tommy Tutu. Well, you tell us about Tommy Tutu. Welcome to the summit, first of all. We are just going where we are going with this interview. Lindsay is a very talented author, illustrator, and layout artist for children's books. I work with her through my children's book company, Purple Butterfly Press, and I'm very pleased to have her with us today to talk about her business, her books, Tommy Tutu, and anything else that we want to get into. It's talking about how we can use children's books to shape and influence the world, to talk about mental health, to talk about difficult topics and all of those things. So welcome, Lindsay. We're so glad to have you.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
So at what point in time, okay, so first of all, did you always start off wanting to write children's books and illustrating and all those kind of things, or did you fall into it? How did all of this come about?
Wow. Okay. So going back, I've always really, as a kid, always had a knack for writing and telling stories. I really like journaling. Anytime I took a trip as a kid, my school, if I missed any school, I'd have to tell a story about it, which would include pictures. Mm-hmm. So I really liked doing that. I loved making a title page. So yeah, the front cover, and I loved making the story. So since I guess I was in, grade 1, grade 2, I've been writing mini stories. But it didn't really come to me to put together a book till, a couple of years ago. So I'm 35 this year. And I have been writing over the course of my life always. Art wise, it just happened one day where I was looking to create the story of Tommy Tutu that I had written. And I was looking for an artist, and I had interviewed a few people, and someone suggested to me, well, why don't you try this? You know, you're doing some art on the side. Have you thought about sitting down and trying it yourself? So I was like, I never even thought of that. So with little, I guess, experience, I've never gone to school to be an artist or anything like that. So I'm self-taught. I just started scribbling around on my on papers and on my iPad, and I just found that I could visualize the story as I told it. So I started to put it down, and people were liking what I was making. So I thought, okay, well, why don't I just go with this?
Yeah, that's great.
So that's how it kind of came to be. So I guess, I've always kind of had a knack for it.
Yeah. So what was the inspiration then behind writing Tommy Tutu? Where did that come from?
Okay, well, 2 angles here. So making children's books came from my mom. My mom passed April 19th, 2017. So
sorry.
Yeah, thanks. It's okay. She, right before she passed, she suggested I write kids books. And I thought to myself, okay, Mom, I'll do this for you, kind of thing. So it was in her, memoriam that I went down this path, right? Mm-hmm. But the story of Tommy actually came from a Canadian story, a true story. I was driving through Canada a couple summers ago, and I was listening to a radio station, local radio, through the Rockies. And a mother had called in and was talking about her young boy, about 7 or 8, who was attending school, and insisted to wear his sister's tutu to school. And she was, obviously, like a mother would be concerned for the bullying side of things and looking forward what that could mean for him going to school. And after several conversations with him, the young boy, he said, Mom, I know what can happen to me. I know about the bullies, and I know what they're going to call me, like gay, and now you're a little girl, and girls wear tutus. He didn't care. He was like, I'm just going to wear the tutu anyway. No big deal. It's just a tutu. I can take it off. What is it? It's just clothes, right? So he it made him happy. And of course, so he goes to school wearing this tutu. And actually the problem didn't, because he was so confident in being himself, it wasn't so much the bullies that became the issue. It was actually, he was confused as to what toilet to use. So it became more of like, I guess you know, how we experience washrooms all the time. It's very rare that we have a communal washroom or, you know, just a whoever washroom. We have the men and we have the women. It's separated. And when you look at the sign on the toilet, for men, you have that, you know, that gender stereotypical, the guy, the sick man with no dress, and that's the boy symbol. And then you have the girl symbol, which has a skirt. So he sees the skirt on the girls' washroom sign and thinks, well, does that mean where do I go? Where do I go to the toilet? Right. And I just was listening to this mother describe the story, and I thought it was so interesting because the boy then ended up continuing to wear the tutu to school, but he would wait until the school day was through, till the very end of the school day, to go to the washroom. So I just thought the story was really interesting, and the messages, which are several, out of that story, I wanted to kind of complete it. What happened to Tommy? Well, like, that wasn't the boy's name. I made that, you know, my own. But what happened to this boy? So I was very curious, and I started to do some research, and there were a lot of stories very similar. And a lot of schools had started to create these everybody washrooms, you know, genderless washrooms to incorporate everyone. So there's that inclusion. There's no separation. All students at schools can feel comfortable to use a washroom no matter what they're wearing. And that kind of told me that there's a niche market. There's a group of people there that perhaps we should learn more about. So that was the inspiration for the story.
That's really, I mean, it's a great story, and it shows that children from such a very, very young age can start to have confusion about who they are and what that means. And, you know, the bigger mental health picture around this. This is unrelated to this, but last year's summit, we spoke with Nathan Frechette, who is a transgender male, and I've done another interview with him from later on, and he was born assigned female and has transitioned to male, and he was talking to me about, like, from the time he was really, really young, he knew that he felt more like a boy than a girl, and how people didn't want to accept the fact that he wanted to go by a different name, and people didn't want to do all of these kinds of things, and that it really, really, truly does play into, he felt like something was wrong with him. He felt suicidal many, many times throughout his life. And we see many young transgender kids committing suicide. So, you know, it's one of those things where you have the opportunity to catch kids when they're still young and not super judgmental, but are starting to think about things from a different perspective, and say, you know, if you see a little boy, somebody who's traditionally been a boy, deciding to wear a skirt, you know, this might be the story behind it, or it might be, you know, somebody like Tommy, and they're more willing to maybe not make fun of them, maybe not be bullying them, maybe not, you know, lead to further. I don't know. I could be totally, you know, off here, but
absolutely, this is segueing into one of, like, the main reasons to the message of the story is, well, younger children, especially, you know, because mental health and a lot of these big emotions that we could tackle in schools, especially, and with children's books, is starting around that age, you know, 6, 7, 8, kind of when we start to formulate our own individual person. And we're also simultaneously trying to find a sense of belonging. So we don't want to be excluded and not fit in, but we feel very estranged because of this difference that we have. So it's almost teaching and having those conversations with children that just because you're different does not mean you don't belong. There is a group there, and the more we notice that at a younger age and have people still come together by inclusion with, you know, everybody washrooms and things like that. It's showing that connectivity, because there's always something you have in common, whatever you're wearing. We're all human, we all have hearts, we all have emotions, and we struggle. And it's, showing kids that we can embrace the individuality and the differences, but we all belong together, and we can only, through coexistence and helping each other, that's how we progress and heal these things and work through mental health. And starting those conversations with the younger generation is essential to then addressing things like suicide, because I mean, that's exactly what's happening now, where unfortunately you have those rises in numbers for suicide that are it's happening at younger rates now. Young kids, and I mean, that's a scary thing. And that if those things are not addressed early on with things like belonging and differences and things and acceptance, then it spreads like a disease, like a mental illnesses, and it turns into a lot of really scary things that and the outcomes.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, children are definitely taught how to treat people. There's no doubt about it. Like, that's not something that you're not born being unkind to people. I have three small young children, and well, they're growing quickly, but my youngest is a first grader, and I love being around the kindergartners and the first graders, like, love it. I wouldn't want to teach them, but I love volunteering from time to time in the classroom, because they love everybody. They hug everybody they come in contact with. They don't care what color, ethnicity, nothing. They're just lovable little children. And, the world hasn't broken them down yet. But I think it's the perfect opportunity to be able to introduce. It is the best time to introduce. So a children's storybook about these types of topics it's genius, really, when you look at growing young children into older children, into young adults, into adults, and how it all kind of funnels up and then funnels back down again, because now they're more tolerant, they're more understanding, they're more compassionate, they're not picking on somebody for being different than them because they've been exposed to all of them. So I think it's phenomenal. And, the whole theme of our summit this time is how we change the world with our words, and really being able to bring compassion and love and kindness into them when they're 3, 4, 5, 6 years old. Like, and it's not just it's not just compassion and things like that. Like, we're seeing it with stress relieving things, and with learning how to teaching children meditation ideas and self-calming techniques, and all of these things. They have such massive impacts as we go on later through life. So I really applaud you for tackling a topic that's really difficult. I know. So I live in the South of the United States, and it depends on who you're around, how accepting people are of certain types of topics. I know Canadians in general seem a little, I feel like seem a little bit more open, but then Nathan's from Canada, and he's shared some things that weren't so open about these topics. So I'm curious, like, when you decide to make a platform and to make a stance on something, what's the blowback been? Have you had any? Has it been good?
Oh, yeah.
Some of both.
It's interesting. No matter where you are, there's always going to be groups of people who really don't like what you do. And I live on the west coast of Canada, the furthest west you can go. I live on Vancouver Island. And we have a lot of transsexual people here, but we also have the smallest community that celebrates that. There's not an overwhelmingly large community. It's still growing, but there is a lot of support for in our education system. There's something called SOGI, and it's a program that is arguably trying to be simultaneously implemented into schools, and some people like to have it removed, where it's teaching about gender equality and different gendered roles and no gender, right? So basically looking at, it's interesting that you bring that up, because when I released this book, I had some trollers online that would comment and were thought this was distasteful and didn't like it. And actually, to be honest, they were younger, and it surprised me. So it really just kind of if I had released this book 10 years ago, I don't think I could have. I would have been
Yeah.
too concerned about what people thought.
Yeah.
And that's what limits a lot of people with messages, that they're scared of what people are thinking. Just like people who want to come out, or who've been identifying as, you know, masculine or feminine this entire time, and it takes them well into their 50s to even acknowledge that. It's because we are deciding for others how they should be. And I think
Yeah.
that we don't get to decide that. We don't get to decide what makes someone happy, and how they can be their best self. And I think that this book definitely brings that to the forefront. We need, you know, just to, I'm going to have people comment on this book for till the end of time. I mean, my own family, some people are uncomfortable about this, and it's just more reason to do it.
Yeah.
If anything, I don't want somebody to tell me what's right or wrong. I want to have a conversation.
Right.
What do you think? And
Right.
why? That's it. I'm not telling
Right.
you this is right. My way is right. It's not about that. It's more just, let's talk. Let's talk about it. And how can we, you know, help possibly change what the world looks like for our younger generations? That's what's most important.
Well, I'm glad that you stated that way, because it really truly is about just having a conversation, a calm conversation, not a you're right, I'm wrong, I'm right, you're wrong type of thing. And just like, so there's another woman, Desiree Peterkin Bell, to segue a little bit here. And she was a co-author on a book that I did, Women Who Influence, with Kate Butler. And she does these amazing things. She is an African-American woman, and she has these, what she calls chat and choose. And she has people of like completely opposite beliefs come into her home and sit down around a dining room table, where they have to be civil. They have to, like, the environment just sets them up to set natural, like, etiquette rules, right? You don't scream at somebody that you're sitting across the dinner table having a nice, lovely dinner. And she brings up topics that she knows are going to be controversial topics, and they talk through them like people, just like, this is why I feel this way. I was raised to believe this and this and this. And she said she has seen like life-changing conversations happen between, for example, somebody who is a very racist white person and a Black woman, and them like hug each other at the end of the night. So it's possible. It's possible to change hearts. It's possible to change minds. It's also possible for somebody to leave a conversation and to still feel exactly the same way that they felt on the topic, morally, religiously, whatever, but they're going to be, now they have a deeper understanding of that other person and what's happening, so they might be more tolerant or less likely to attack, or all these things. So starting at the children's level, but not only that, you're impacting the adults who are reading this to them.
Yeah.
And anybody in between. So I love that. I love the power of a book to do that, to literally change someone's entire viewpoint, or shape their viewpoint, or make the world better. So, I mean, and I think you're right. You have to be at the right stage in your life. I think when we're in our 20s, just generally, and even earlier 30s, we are just generally very worried about what the world thinks about us.
I mean, I think a lot of things in my life have led me exactly to where I'm going to be. And I believe that about everything. So, I mean, I spent 7 years as an ESL teacher teaching internationally. And so I've taught a wide range of children and then adults. And we are all the same. I've taught Saudis, so Muslim people. I've taught Turkish people, Brazilians, Koreans, Japanese. I've taught Italians, and through and through, I've met gay Muslims. I've met all sorts of people who and people who want to change their gender. And it doesn't matter where you come from. We all have similar emotions and struggles. And at the root of us being people, that is a similar thing. And it doesn't matter if you're white, it doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter if you're Black African. We all have hearts, and we all struggle, and we just want to feel like a sense of belonging, which means hopefully we can create a space or a reasonable doubt. So that's a beautiful concept that lady has. Those people come into her house that are polar opposites. And that's what I experience with a classroom of international ESL students. You have people with all types of religions, colors,
Mm-hmm.
ethnicities, like
Mm-hmm.
food preferences. And then somehow we all start laughing together at some point in the
Right.
classroom because we all come together at some point on something. You just got
Yeah.
to find it.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing that does hold true for people too is that we tend to uh, when we fear something, we tend to respond negatively or harshly to it. So fear, just opening it up to a very simple level, like you
Yeah.
didn't get into the ins and outs of what it means to be transgender, or all these, like, you didn't get into that. You took it at the level of very, like, it doesn't have to go deep. It just has to say, this little boy felt one way, he did something different about it, he felt compelled to, and that's okay. It's okay if somebody is different. They don't have to do it your way or the highway. And sometimes that's a really hard lesson to teach children, even small children. So it's good that we introduce it to them in little chunks that are manageable for them, because even with my little ones, they may be open and loving to anyone around them, but it's really hard to make them realize that things can be done differently than the way that you did it. Oh, my little one has just a really hard time understanding how, we can get to school going a different route than the way we went yesterday, or, those things. So any tools that we can help them see that you don't always have to do it this way. And it's okay if somebody likes basketball instead of football, that doesn't make football a horrible, it doesn't make those people stupid for liking football. This is what I'm going through with my son right now, so it's like, just because you like basketball doesn't mean I'm stupid because I want to watch the Super Bowl, so it's all about teaching children and helping them grow into more understanding adults.
Yes. Yeah.
What are you working on? Are you working on any more books in the series, or any more? Are you going to stay on this same topic, or are you spreading out into other mental health arenas?
It's interesting. I have a long list of things that I'm working on. For this series was the Awkward and Awesome series. So I've got a couple on the go. There's one following up that's it's a female hero. So basically it's based on a true story that I experienced with a friend of mine in Vancouver while I lived there. So right outside of my apartment, my friend's bike was stolen. And she decided to take matters into her own hands and steal her bike back.
Go for it, girl.
Yeah. I turned that one, and see, again, that's dealing with a female role, main lead, who, and women, it's a dangerous thing to be your own hero.
Yeah, it is.
And have take over that male superhero kind of against all odds, and fighting against crime, and that's a dangerous thing for a woman. But she did that. It's very commendable, and it's a fun story, and I turned that into a kid's book, so that's following. So go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it's super interesting, and this is how we get ingrained, like the things that happen in our society, how we're raised to think of things. Like, the first thing that crossed my mind when you said that was fear of, oh no, is this book going to teach little girls to go take matters into their hands and to steal stuff back from people and put themselves in a situation where they're in trouble and in danger? And then as you continue to talk, I was thinking, but that's what all the boy superheroes do all the time.
Is it
That's
not?
what they're doing.
And we're watching that on TV every day, but no one's poo-pooing any of that.
Right.
So, I mean, what's wrong with a book that does maybe, I'm not saying go outside and go steal, and I'm pretty sure young kids would look at mom going, no, mom, don't be silly. I would never do that. Like, I mean, kids know this, right?
Right.
It's the larger message, and you said it directly. Are we teaching young girls to take matters into their own hands? Yes, we are. Are we not?
Yes, we are. And we should.
So there we go. I mean, there we go. And that's that. Sure, you can.
There's my biases of how I was raised and what's going on, which is really ironic because I am a big feminist. So if those kind of messages are still ingrained in me, I mean, yeah.
It's just, yeah, I feel you. And so does the rest of the world, because a lot of people say that that's the first reaction when they see the story.
Mm-hmm.
It's either great, there's a female lead. We don't see enough of these, superhero fight the world women. We see more of that coming from boys. So I mean, if I had done Tammy tutu with a girl in a tutu, I mean, no one's gonna look twice at a little girl in a tutu. That's expected. But if you throw a boy in a tutu, then people are like, what's going on? But it's interesting because it's the adults doing that.
Yeah.
And we start to throw labels at that. Well, yes. This is a gay book. Is this kid like transgender? Like, how does he know that at 8 years old? Well, it's like, we don't know that. And it's interesting because children who are 7 picking this book up, they don't even care about the boy in a tutu. It's like they don't even see that part. It's just a boy. They don't even see it that he's in a dress until somebody older points it out, perhaps. They're more concerned about what's he going to do? Problem solving. Oh no, what's he going to do? And look at these neat little things in the background. Like there's a flying cat. So like, I mean, and the cat follows him around. He's in every image. So it's kind of like, there's things that for everyone here where a kid who looks past the tutu can kind of just see, oh, look what's going on in the background.
Yeah.
And notice things that, like anything in life, notice something we don't see.
Right.
So.
Yeah. We bring to everything our own biases, everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm glad that you're continuing on a series with these tough topics and bringing that forth, which I think is good. I mean, I like to challenge my kids to expand their horizon and their mindsets and what they're exposed to. And I know for a fact that the only reason that I am so open to so many more things that many of my family members would not be is because of the fact that I have spent time in other countries and in other cultures and with other people and outside of my own front gates, So I've had the opportunity to experience that somebody who speaks a different language and maybe, does things in a different way is still just as kind and caring and loving, or just as mean. There are mean people everywhere too, that like your experience with working with all these different cultures. So, if you don't have the means to travel or to go live in a foreign country or something else, then books are the most wonderful way, and always have been the most wonderful way to introduce us to other thoughts and ideas and cultures and places and imagination and all kinds of things. So I think it's great.
Thank you.
This can be a really tough topic. And I'm sure there are some people who have listened to this interview and don't like this topic. And, that's okay. That's what comes, I think, with this territory. But it's a good lesson for anybody who is really trying to have an impact in the world, that there are always going to be people who don't like what you're doing or like how you're doing it or like the message that you're sending. And this is something that for authors who want to make an impact with your writing, you have to know and understand that there will be people who are not going to like it. So you just have to know that that if you are getting out there and you're writing about a controversial topic, you are going to generate controversy. And if you're not ready for that, then, don't put yourself out there that way, or partner with somebody who could take the brunt of that or do whatever.
Absolutely. I mean, this is segueing into then your question about talking about the publishing and that backlash, but you're gonna get it either way. I mean, it just, in your regular life, publishing a book or not, I just decided to live my life in a certain way that I believed strongly. So and with that, you get negative reviews. Not everyone's gonna like the way you live. Not everyone's gonna like the choices you make. That starts with your family, your friends, and as soon as you start to just, I mean, you acknowledge their distaste, but you move along anyway, and you say, I'm going to love you and leave you, and I'm going to keep doing me. Yeah. And I think that's, you're teaching people to just be concerned with themselves. Worry about yourself. Make sure you're happy. I'm going to do me. You do you. I wish you well. It's basically the same thing. I mean, and with that attitude, I can then sit down with the book and just, you love your haters, you love your lovers. I actually really enjoy negative feedback now. I sit there and I'm really I love it. I again, talking back to the 10-year-old, the me 10 years ago, I would have
Yeah.
just
No,
run
I
away,
know.
cried, given up,
Right.
hid
Right.
under my covers. But that's just unrealistic. There's always going to be people. I mean, just till the day you're gone, you know, people aren't going to like that you're in the ground versus cremated. It's like, it's endless. It just keeps going and going
It's
and
like,
going.
really?
Someone, you know, someone doesn't like what's written on your gravestone, to like, I don't know. It's just nuts. It goes on and on. You're just going to have to put your foot down at some point and say, how much do you really want to take? And you're kind of like, all right, well, this is enough. And I'm going to do me. And what I say there is then Tommy. I mean, how envious am I of some 7-year-old boy owning it? And I'm like, I wish I was 7 and owning it. Like, why wasn't I that, you know? And
Yeah.
that's what I want to see in my daughter and her children and her friends, you know, the kids that just are comfortable with who they are. They acknowledge that some people are not going to like this, and
Right.
they're okay with it, and they keep doing them no matter what.
Right.
And yeah.
I agree so much. I really love this topic. It's something that I'm like getting more and more into as I get older. I think it just becomes more and more important to me. And as I raise children and as I see how much I impact how they show up in the world by my actions and my activities, and how I'm a very compassionate, kind person. And the last thing in the world I want to do is raise kids that aren't. So, you know, it's fantastic. I love this interview. I think we could go on and on and on, but I do want to circle back around to the children's book writing part. And for anybody who's hung with us this long into the interview that is thinking about writing a children's book or a YA book, really, or a graphic novel that has these topics or anything like this, do you have any tips or suggestion for somebody who's just getting started from the logistical parts of writing a children's book?
Logistical. So you're talking about the actual physical doing it?
Like what they need to get a children's book done, basically.
I mean, just start talking about it as if you're doing it already, basically. It helps. It helps that if you talk about yourself as if you're already doing action, it makes it easier to make yourself to put yourself there. People become drawn to that. They ask questions. They hold you accountable. You'll probably, you know, the more you talk about it, people reach out. They want to help you. You'll meet, you know, ask questions, find out where you can. I think that's the big part, is finding a supportive network of people you can ask questions to, and find your tribe. I mean, find people who want to help you, because I mean, you got all different types of people with different financial capabilities and or talents, and you you know, if you it takes it. I know it takes some money, it takes talent to put books together by yourself. It takes time, but there's something so rewarding in making something yourself, and with a team of people that you can talk to and influence and just share like an experience with. That's so magical. But that starts with talking about what you're doing, asking questions, putting yourself in positions where you can figure out what's going on and find out what people like, and building a team. So joining a writers group or any sort of group or collective that can support you in your dream and your goal to achieve those things, like writing a book.
You know, when I asked that question, I was expecting you to come back with saying you needed like a good editor and illustrator and
it starts
all those kinds of things. But
it starts well before that. Yeah.
No, I appreciate that response very, very much, because it is true that the community, the support network, the ability to find people to help you through, like, those are extremely important elements of publishing any type of book. So I'm glad you went that direction. But then what are some of the other things that they need in terms of, like, okay, so they're going to have to find, if they don't illustrate on their own, they're going to have to find an illustrator. They're going to have to find somebody who knows how to lay out the book if their illustrator does not also do layout, because they have to make sure that it looks right when it's printed. An editor, of course, across the board, everybody needs an editor. Is there anything else that a children's book would need that I haven't addressed there that you've come to learn about?
You don't have a book unless you have content and an idea. I mean,
Well,
really,
to get very basic, yes, you must have words. You must have a story.
And perfecting a script is your main thing. Get that script as polished and clean as best as possible.
Yeah.
So, because moving forward with that, whether you go traditional or self-publishing, that needs to be polished.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very, very true. And if you are hoping to get picked up by a traditional publisher, like, I mean, you don't have to necessarily worry about illustration or anything like that. They will do all of those things for you, but the story has to be so good and it has to be so different because there's so many other books coming out all the time that
Yeah, you'd be surprised how many of my friends have read my stories and picked out things that didn't sound right. I've had numerous friends read my scripts, and that's right there. I feel like a lot of people need to use their own backyard more than they realize. I every time I open up Facebook and I find myself, scrolling, I think, well, I probably have everyone that I need right here in front of me, but you overlook that. You kind of just forget the fact that you have how many friends on Facebook, and I'm sure someone knows how to edit, and I'm sure someone knows how to do a scribble or two of a picture. And just use the network you already have friends read your scripts. Some people are better visualizers than others, so some people could say, hey, this works, this doesn't, what have you thought about this? And you never really know who knows who. So as soon as you start to use your own network, you'd be amazed how you can start to create something all of a sudden, and it'll happen like the snowball effect, right? So
yeah. Well, and good news for everybody who's thinking about writing a children's book, because now you have Lindsay in your network, and she is also an illustrator and a layout artist. So you can always reach out to her. Where's the best place for people to connect with you in terms of the professional side, the books and the illustrations, etc.?
Yeah, my website. So anyone who wants to reach out for any illustration, editing, layout, even just general feedback, it's www.breadandclutter.com.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait to see the next book that comes out. When do you think you'll be publishing your next book in your series?
It depends whether or not I'm going to do it myself. I had this idea that I might pitch it to some traditional publishers. So now I could be waiting months while I could be, if I decided to do it myself, which it's ready to go and be printed. It's all done. It's all edited. It's all illustrated. I could press print and have it done today, Alexa, but I'm also, thinking, well, how can I do this in a traditional sense? And it comes down to patience for me. And then it'll come down to a list of yes or no's. So if I get a bunch of no's, I'm going to just do it myself.
Yeah. Well, I wish you the best of luck with that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking your time. Thank you so much for showing up in such a brave way in the world. And having the impact that you do. It's amazing.
It's okay. I'll have to go take off my armor in a minute. When we're done this.
Yes, exactly. It is heavy. It's hard. Yeah. But thank you for your time and all of your knowledge and information.
You bet. Thanks.